Yes, and thank you, Melissa. I think, well, I'm going to let the folks of, I see a couple of more hands raised, and so I don't know if those are to the same issues, but let's see, we have Alan and Jillian. Do you want to make a comment? Either of you?
I was going to just bring up what Melissa brought up with the investigation question. I think there's a difference between investigation and gathering information. And I think using them for information gathering is a great thing to do, especially once we're skilled enough to know what information is important. They shouldn't go out digging up information. There's people for that, but definitely put a provision where information gathering is encouraged.
And, speaking to that, I think of as a case manager, I am getting information that is super helpful in terms of moving forward in all types of aspects of case planning. And I think the way that I look at that focus is really on the engagement piece. The reason why case managers are getting this information that other folks maybe aren't getting is because we're engaging with these clients in a different way. And whether that ends up being sustainable safety plans because we understand their relationships with these folks or not. I think that that's how it is. Going in just for the sake of gathering information is very different than information, and in terms of that, just the idea and concept of sustainability, that lends into the transportation piece. I, for one, have a very strict policy. I will never transport any clients. And I'm looking for their long-term success. And if getting somewhere that they need to be takes them all day, I want them to be able to figure out how to work and navigate. I will spend so much more time on figuring out a way that a client can potentially move forward and do the things that they need to do, so that when we step out, they're able to do that they're able to know, that they are going to be able to, or maybe know that they can't get somewhere, but I don't feel like I am being of service if I am, creating something that's not sustainable for my folks.
Thanks, Jillian. Warren?
We use our in-house case manager here a lot to gather treatment records for domestic violence, mental health, and substance abuse treatment. Those things, our in-house caseworker has a lot of experience in that, and it's helpful that she's been able to develop rapport and connections, some of those going back many years with those providers. So it helps for her to be able to get documentation, treatment, and confer with the treatment providers rather than having a normal detective type investigator doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the feedback on this because, we absolutely see case managers in their role of gathering information, or like Melissa suggested, vetting safety service providers. I think that this has come up before. We've received referrals for clients that are just missing, they're not engaged. And so, case managers in those types of cases, we see an investigator being the better resource to actually locate the client so that the case manager can do the engagement. Or, there's the example of an attorney that wants pictures of a client's home, and has asked a case manager to do that. And in those types of cases, we would encourage an investigator because, it would be a fact witness for court. So I absolutely encourage, the gathering information, and I think that we can modify some language on this document to reflect that. And I also wanted to comment too, just on Melissa's comment around transportation. I do think that it's an issue that we should bring up to, to the higher ups within DHS around transportation, because they have expectations of clients in some of these rural communities where I know with COVID, a lot of the transportation was shut down, and clients just simply didn't have a way to get to their visits or their services. So I do think it's an issue that we should address on a larger scale with DHS. Any other oh, go ahead, Stacy. I see your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw out there that transportation has always been an issue here in Coos. And one of the things that I have noticed that really helps is when our juvenile court judge is on board with the defense about the importance of DHS working more flexibly with clients rather than just offering a bus ticket. And her consistent pressure on that issue has really helped. And so we are having caseworkers do more transporting in even non-ICWA cases than ever before. So that's one thing that, you know, it might help to raise that issue. I don't know if you guys have model court meetings or teams in I don't know if they're in every county, but that's something that I would raise in a setting similar to that and see if I can't get my juvenile court judge to support us on that issue.
If I can just jump in real quick, because I definitely the transportation stuff, you know, it's concerning from sort of multiple perspectives. As I'm listening to everybody. And I just would encourage attorneys to, and I think this applies to the transportation piece, but probably it's broader than that. You know, whenever DHS is looking to you or to specifically the case manager to do something, is it just for the benefit of the client and it's really, you know, working as a team, or is DHS looking to offload part of their responsibility? I see Alan laughing, but I mean, really, I think that's a fair way of characterizing it. I'm not, you know, trying to attribute any like ill intent toward anybody, but we all have lots of stuff coming at us all day, every day, and I think there's a natural inclination. If it looks like there's somebody that can help you do what you need to get done, you might tap that person and ask for help that maybe they shouldn't be doing. So my point really is, don't lose sight of where reasonable efforts fits in. If DHS is offering a service, but the parent has no way of getting to that service, they really haven't been given a reasonable opportunity to ameliorate the, you know, whatever the jurisdictional basis is that service relates to. So just keep that in mind. And I think you can raise that in individual cases and also in talking, you know, with the court, and, you know, whatever meetings you all have, whether it's model court, you know, JSEP, something else, that, you know, making that point and continuing to educate judges about really what does reasonable efforts mean, what is the standard, and offering a service that somebody has no way to get to that's not reasonable. So.
Thanks, Shannon. Gardner, you have your hand up.
Hi, yes, nice to see everybody. Sorry, I'm on my phone today, I apologize. I just wanted to say one thing, which it's separate, it's a separate issue, but I've found a lot of success with the work with our case manager when they do, I think it's under the list of things that they are, which talks about them providing like, almost like modeling what a social work person is, if that makes sense. In other words, we have caseworkers, we have all these other people, and I think when I think our case managers are weakest when they're viewed as just one more person with an opinion on something. They can be strong opinions, they can be filled with good background information, and sometimes we need one more person on our side, you know, in certain settings. But I think when they're most effective is when they demonstrate that it's like, hey, I'm not arguing about all this stuff. I'm trying to help this client get from point A to point B, take them from where they are to where they need to be. And I'm doing what I can to help facilitate that. And if everyone else does their job, you know, we're going to get there. And I just love it when our case manager kind of demonstrates that I'm doing this as a social worker. I'm here to help these people. And the rest of you can kind of, you know, bicker and whatever. And so I'm just throwing that out there, as I think it's a really important aspect. And I think it just gets buried in those 10 points or so. So I'm just doing a shout out to that as a powerful advocacy for our clients when they demonstrate that.
Thank you, Gardner. Paul? Thought Paul had his hand up, but he might be on mute.
I'm on mute. Thank you. Sorry. Just to piggyback on what Gardner said, I think it's awesome for the clients to have this juxtaposition between this case manager and this case worker, where the case manager is there and available and spending time, and then, the client compares that to the amount of time they get with their caseworker, which is just a ridiculous amount of time, an hour a month or something like that. So that's just really a nice comparison. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Dana.
Melissa? Yeah.
Sorry, one more thing as I was looking at the list one more time, where it talks about provide direct service focused work in the client community. Is there another list somewhere that like gives some examples for people? So, I mean, sometimes I look at it as like life skills, for example, like just some of the skills, basic skills that some of our clients were never taught or need to be refreshed, like how to keep a calendar, for example, so that they have a schedule of appointments. For people that are newer lawyers or newer to this work, they might not think of that as being something that a case manager could assist a client with. But I used to spend a lot of time with my clients, like trying to teach them this is how I keep my calendar and I add things here. And now that's something that my case managers often take over for me, which is a huge help to me. And so I don't think sometimes we put enough emphasis on just those basic life skills, or like, this is how I call to schedule a doctor appointment for my child. And if I don't receive a timely call back, I wait this long. Just those things that aren't necessarily jurisdictionally related, but have a real impact on their ability to live in the world just on a daily basis.
I totally agree with you, Melissa. That's a great point. I think that we considered putting things that were a lot more specific on this list. And in lieu of doing that and hemming things in, even though those would be great ideas, I think we went more the route of, you communicating with your assigned case manager and allowing them and you to kind of plan together about, well, this is my client, this is what her needs are. What is your experience? What's your background? What are your ideas? And kind of collaborating that way instead. I think all of your ideas and what you would want for your client are going to come out in that setting. So I think that's what we're encouraging for that particular issue, or wanting to get, details on this list, if that answers your question. Because you guys have tons of experience. Our case managers do as well. They have varying degrees of backgrounds. And I love when you guys use your experience and your years of expertise, and then you collaborate with our guys, and gals to do that as well. So much can come out of that. But I think that coming together of communication in a meeting or over the phone or whatever, first with or without the client, can bring up all of those ideas for you guys.
Yeah, I was just going to add to, thank you, Shannon. We did consult with the Colorado office, had a really good flyer that they put out that listed out like tons of different types of roles, so that we, because we knew that this was an issue that some attorneys or even case managers just didn't know, like, what are all the different things I can do to support a client in a case. And so we have a supplemental document that goes along with this roles document that we created that is a part of this informational kind of resource packet that we hope to get out to providers as we finalize it. And I would love to add kind of the life skills piece to it. We do have some stuff on it around, like modeling phone calls, things like that you referenced, Melissa. So I think it's a great point that we could add to this supplemental document that really kind of lays out different specific tasks that a case manager could help a client with. Gardner, did you have another comment?
Always. I was just going to say that based on that last discussion, when I was thinking that, it brought to mind the part where it's support clients in identifying barriers and calendaring and just having organizational skills, and a system for that, I think kind of falls under that category. And I'm glad that you have specifics, in a separate document for folks. But I wanted to give one example where I know that it was an effective strategy, at least in a couple of cases where our case manager expressed to a parent, said, like, you got these court-ordered services, right? And then she basically broke it down and empowered the client by saying, there are things that we can figure out, that you may have ideas on how to make sure that court order service works, a plan, a strategy, whatever for you as a person. You may, maybe we can figure something out together, case manager and client, or we can ask DHS for help. And when you put it that way, I found that it was such a weird basic strategy for identifying barriers that parents so many times would say, like, I want to figure that out. I don't want DHS to tell me how to do it. And then that always led to, hey, case manager, do you have any ideas about that? And then it just opened the door for the case manager to say, like, yeah, let's get a calendar. Why don't we put this up on the fridge? Why don't we get this thing that you can carry around with you? Let's figure out what you have a phone. Let's figure out how to put that in your phone system or something. And so anyway, I'm just chatting that up again, because I think helping clients in the details, in the moments of just how do you make this thing work, is central to this. And I'm just saying what everyone else is saying, and we don't need to go on all these details, but it's I just think it's been great when case managers are able to not be the caseworker, but they can say, I got some ideas here and I have a way to approach this that maybe we could help facilitate, getting these other things done. And we're not going to need the caseworker to do it. We can figure it out. And it's really helped them build a relationship with the clients. Blah, blah, blah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I love hearing about how it's working. Alan, go ahead.
That's one advantage we have here is that, well, our main one, Carol, was CASA director for 20 years. She knows every service, every possibility, and she walks into a case knowing what the priorities are. And I mean, she doesn't go out on her own, off the reservation, but she knows what's important. Is this client need housing? Do they need this? They need that? I think giving the caseworkers a good idea of what the priorities are on almost every case, and then not micromanage them, just ask that they report back what's going on, would be probably more effective in the long run. I mean, I don't have time to second guess everything they want to do. Carol's already done it, and so is Jody, the one we have over in Corvallis. Same thing, where they've done this enough, and turning them loose makes it easier for us too. So not micromanaging a thing is probably a quiet thing to point out to those of us practitioners, because we get in the way sometimes. That's all I had.
Thanks, Alan. Great. I thank you guys all for your feedback of what's working well. And, in the interest of time, I do want to spend some time around, any barriers that anyone's experiencing. I know we have this practice routines document that we can also look at, but we have about 25 minutes left. And, I did want to kind of open it up to the group. Shannon and I meet with our case managers monthly. We staff things with them regularly. So we do have kind of a summary of some of the barriers they experience in the attorney case manager relationship. But I just wanted to open it up to the group to see if there's any barriers that we can take note of, anything that you need as support from either Shannon and I as the administrators, or from OPDS, that could help, foster a good working relationship between attorneys and case managers in this model.
This is Ryan Loosely. I'm a case manager, but I'm in-house, and so things are working really smoothly because of that relationship with the attorneys. But in anticipation of this, I reached out to the other case managers down here in Roseburg and asked for some input, because they serve the rest of the bar here in town. And they both, well, I just heard from 2 of the 3, and they both said similar things, that they're really struggling with knowing how much information to provide to the attorneys, and that kind of that delicate balance. And this document in front of us talks about being part of the defense team. And one of the things that they're really struggling with is just that they're not really, there's some attorneys that they're very much part of the team, and that they are, the attorney actively communicates with them, and they process the issues of the case and work together to kind of create solutions. One of the case managers said she's assigned to a case with an attorney and hasn't heard from them for the entire year, hasn't talked to the attorney one time in a year of getting that case. And I've heard that is a common theme a little bit down here, and it really concerns me, because I don't know how it's not, to me, not surprising to learn that that client is not doing well either. So that's kind of the general theme, that the struggle is communication. There's either a lot of it or there's none, and just knowing how much to share with them each week or each month.
Thank you, Ryan, for providing that feedback and for reaching out to the folks down there. Would it be helpful if we moved on to our second document that kind of looks at some guidelines around communication and enhancing that interdisciplinary team? Because I would agree with Ryan that Shannon and I surveyed our case managers, and I really think that it all centers around communication. That's what they struggle with too, is being looped into that legal team. And so this document kind of came out of our initial case manager and attorney work group, where we provided some practice routines, some best practices around what things should the team be doing, what things can attorneys be doing, what things can case managers be doing when they experience some of these barriers that around communication. So I'm hopeful that that's a tool. I will also say that, one thing Shannon and I discussed in preparation for this meeting today was just, we really want to get the message out to all providers, whether that's a case manager or an attorney, that, we're available to consult on cases when there's barriers around communication. Or, for example, if there's an attorney that you haven't heard from in a year, I think OPDS and Shannon and I as case manager administrators want to know about that so that we can address it for sure. So that's something we're committed to, is just making it very clear that we're a resource to providers when barriers around communication come up. Any other comments about this document or other barriers?
So Dana, one thing, because I sent this out when I received it initially to our group and just said, hey, review this, let me know if you have any feedback. And one of the things that came up was, and I know this is not necessarily like an interaction issue or working with a case manager, but it would be great if attorneys were somehow involved in or looped into the contracting process for when new case managers are selected or assigned to a county, because of the familiarity, especially in smaller communities. Sometimes there's reputation and things like that like people at OPDS may not be aware of, but practitioners might be, and that can sometimes impact attorneys' comfort levels. That's not, fortunately, that's not an issue with any of our case managers currently. But it's just something that I think would be helpful to make sure that the attorneys, because ultimately it's on us to make sure that confidentiality is being followed and we're responsible. And so just to make sure that the attorneys are comfortable with the people that they're going to be working with.
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, no, I appreciate that feedback for sure. Paul, did you have a comment around that?
Yeah, thanks. Just to kind of go back to a basic barrier, which is DHS and AGs and not including case managers on emails, despite repeated requests. And then it is our job ultimately as the lawyer to loop them in. But I mean, I at the beginning of this program, I did it hundreds of times. I said it to every single caseworker, every single AG, can you please include the case manager? There's a case manager on this case. I'm wondering if there's an automatic way to do it, because I mean, I know it's my job, but I have 80 case credits and it's hard to remember every time I make a reply to include the case manager. I try my best. And then also with discovery, we get discovery and You know, is there a way, and do you think it's okay to just say, can you please add this case manager to the discovery list, to the AAG's discovery staff? And I think that would be a help. That's something we should be doing right from the get-go of the case. Then the case manager is in that list. But I really struggle with that. And I know I've had a case manager just tell me, I just can't even, I don't know what I'm doing on this case because I don't know, I'm not getting the updates. I'm missing meetings, and ultimately that's my fault. But it's just really difficult when you have a lot of cases to keep track of following up on those. That's all. And if anyone has suggestions, thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I see a couple of hands raised, so I'm just going to go through. Jody, did you want to make a comment around that?
Yeah, so I'm a case manager, and I've worked like really hard to stay connected with DHS. I have the emails of the facilitators for like CRBs and FDMs, and I reach out to them when I get a new case to make sure that they put me on the email list. I try and, when I email DHS, sometimes CC the supervisor and the AAG and the DA just to let them know, hey, I'm on this case, here I am. If you guys have any ideas or something that you think I could really work with this client, let me know. But in just trying, for me, advocating for myself as a case manager and not always putting it on the attorney, because I get that you guys are busy. I get that you guys have a full caseload as well. So I just really try and advocate for myself when it comes to meetings, and that might be right or wrong, but it's been really beneficial both in Polk County and Benton County for me.
Thanks for sharing that, Jody. Several hands raised. I'm going to start with Ryan, because I'm assuming maybe you might comment on the discovery issue.
Yeah, so, and I think I mentioned this before, but in Douglas County, we went to the branch manager of DHS, and when this started a year ago, PCRP in Roseburg, and got her permission to, so all that happens when we get a new case is we email the discovery clerk the case number and the name, and they put us on the list. The other thing that happens is they put us in ORCIDs as a participant in the case. And one of the things that's helpful about that is that then we get invited to the FEMs because they're pulling up that list from the case in ORCIDs, and that's what they're using to make their calls about who gets invited. So she does two things. She adds us to the discovery and puts us into ORCIDs. And it's been flawless. I mean, the attorneys don't have to do anything with regard to discovery in Douglas County. We get everything straight from DHS, except for like if it's going to trial and it's coming from the AG's office, we don't get those, but that's pretty not as common, so it's not as big a problem.
It's my understanding too, Ryan, that if anybody's missing discovery, say there's a hiccup in that process, that they have 2 point people, Ms. Rice and someone else at DHS that they can contact directly. Is that correct?
Yes, we can email either of them. I mean, I mostly just email Carrie because she's kind of the point person, and she'll send out whatever we need.
Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. I know that I'm committed to trying. I know we tried that a little bit in Multnomah and got a lot of pushback, but I think that, I think we can commit to trying to duplicate that. I mean, we met with the AGs and in some of our counties, and they weren't willing to entertain that discussion. So it's worth noting and trying again to see if we can replicate something that you guys have going in Douglas.
Well, and I'm wondering too, because what Ryan was talking about, that sounds like an ideal situation and really what we want to see happen. So on the OPDS side, we can work at, is there something that we can have happening at a higher level? Because we know that the policy is often good, but it doesn't trickle down in practice to the on the ground level. So we can look into exploring, can we develop some policy that's then directed and filtered down to the branch level to try to address some of these issues? Because it really is just so disheartening to hear from all of you about what kind of issues you have just trying to get information to the right people. So I'm committed to trying to do what we can on our end of things to try to better support you all with all this stuff, because it's going in circles is not good for anybody.
Thanks, Shannon. Okay, I want to make sure that I saw that there's some comments in the chat that I wasn't monitoring, so I want to make sure to go back to that and then get to the folks that have their hands raised too. So let's go. Jody, are you still have your hand raised, or is that from before?
That's from before. I don't know
Okay.
how to raise my hand.
That's
so.
okay. Alan, did you have another comment you wanted to make?
Yes, I think from towns like Douglas County actually would be a best practice. And one of our biggest roadblocks here is management at this office. They've been reluctant at one point. We didn't even give costs of the addresses of the kids that were in care. And I think that would be best to do it that way. Also, Dana, did Cheyenne send you that form that she made? Because that might be, see how that floats across the state too. It works pretty good here so far. But I think we need to have a meeting of the minds between the judge, DHS management, and Salem management, and let them know here's how this needs to roll, and let it go. But maybe some help from above in Salem wouldn't hurt either, DHS. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Alan, for reminding me about that form. And that Cheyenne did a great job. One of our attorneys, I think in Polk, was where we got that idea, but it's a template form that Alan's assistant made that, you know, that an attorney can send at the onset of an assignment of a case manager that goes out to all legal parties saying, this is my case manager, please include them in correspondence. So we'll definitely get that up on the toolkit so that attorneys have that as a resource. Oh, was I muted the whole time? Melissa or Gardner, do either of you want to make a comment?
So I was just going to say that there's also ways to streamline sharing of discovery. Like my case management system, I can share it with my case manager early on. So when I receive it and my assistant, I guess processes it into my case management system, it automatically generates a notification to my case manager so that they are then able to review it. So that has saved me a lot of time and discord, I would say, with the agency.
Thanks, Melissa. That's an excellent tip that we definitely have heard before, as we've entertained the idea of doing a training kind of for those attorneys that have good systems of discovery sharing in place to do some sort of a little training with other attorneys. So that's a great idea. Gardner? Is your hand still up? Okay.
It is. And this is really quick. It's again, it's like the obvious thing, but I also know that sometimes the way we've trained, it's somewhat manipulative folks to get our case managers into the loop. And one technique I do, which is when other people need something from you, the first thing out of your mouth is what you need them to do to loop your case manager in. And so when they're trying to schedule a meeting, I'm just like, and they're asking, they even check like, hey, we haven't heard back from you. We need to know if this meeting's going to work. I'm like, please check with Lorna and make sure she's looped in on this and see if she's available for that meeting as well. And that's your response to them. And then eventually they're like, there's always an extra step. They're never responding to this until we loop their case manager in. And then they start doing it, lo and behold. And that's also true of discovery. You can have hearings come up where it's not a problem for your client to have a delay in a matter. A setover won't hurt your client. And if the other side is saying, like, what are we doing here? You can point out to them that you've had certain delays in the case to process the case internally in your office because your case manager wasn't included on a couple of things. So you're trying to get them up to speed, process their information internally as part of your attorney team, and it's causing delays, and you're going to need a setover. And they start including your case manager. So it's manipulative, but you just let them know every step of the way, this is part of my team. They're part of everything. Let them know, So that's what we do. It's not even passive aggressive. It's just aggressive.
Thank you. I really do appreciate hearing strategies from attorneys on how, because I think that's, I mean, like I said earlier, it's one of our biggest issues with case managers. So is not, not being looped into everything. So I love the idea of exploring some of these strategies. I saw in the chat that Paul asked Melissa what case management system. Did you see that? Or Melissa, do you want to share with us what case management system you do use?
I use Theo.
Okay. Okay, so we've got about 8 minutes left. Any other comments or feedback? Let's see, we got another chat.
This is Stacy. I'm sorry, I have to go so I can get to my 1 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Stacy, and your feedback.
Absolutely.
Any other final comments before we wrap up? I know probably lots of folks have court at 1, so I just again want to thank everyone for participating in this. It's been wonderful, to watch the stages of implementation of this program, and we have the hope of it moving statewide or, expanding to additional counties. And so the more that feedback we can get from folks that are doing this work on ways to streamline it, ways to make access to information easier. I really appreciate all the feedback.
And Dana, I was just going to mention, I think you said this before, but in addition to getting these the 2 documents that we went over today, getting those out to everybody, both Shannon and Dana there's some additional documents, some tools and tips that go along with those documents. I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 documents total that we'll get out, sort of a package. So you all, as well as all PCRP providers, will be getting that before the end of March. And so this conversation's been really helpful. And then prior to, did I just see a hand go up, or did I just see, that was just me maybe.
I think that was my floating thumbs up on mailing that stuff out. So I apologize for the distraction.
I thought I saw something yellow just for a brief second. Perfect. Before the March 8th meeting, we will get an agenda with a summary sort of where we left off on the complex case waiting, and then what we hope to tackle in the March 8th meeting, so it's real clear, because we do anticipate finishing up on the 8th. So we want to make sure everybody's on board with where we're at and what we still need to cover in that meeting. Any questions about what we talked about today, or anything else for the good of the order before we wrap up?
I just want to say, and I don't want to squelch any questions out there because we want them, and this is my point, is that Dana and I cannot express enough that we are here for you to have any questions that you have, any concerns you have with case managers, cases, streamlining process, anything. Please, we are only as good as the problems and suggestions that you bring to us. We are fully available to you. So please do not hesitate to bring any of those concerns and questions our way. We are here for it.
Yeah, and certainly, as OPDS staff, we feel the same way. We want to know about that. I know, Ryan, the comment you made earlier about wanting to know, you expect that OPDS would want to know if a case manager has not heard from the attorney for a year. Absolutely. We'd like to learn. We'd like to know about it long before that. Yeah, that's a problem. That's not going to benefit anyone.
Yeah, and if a case manager, is not comfortable reaching out to me or Caroline or anybody else at OPDS, reach out to Dana and Shannon. We're in communication all the time. They will definitely share that information, but a year is too long. I hope that people are comfortable reaching out to somebody, because that is way too long for an attorney to not have contact with a case manager. And as you said, Ryan, it's not surprising that a client that's in that situation is maybe not doing well now. And that's really obviously not the point. And the other piece is I sort of talked about a little bit, but if you're having issues with your particular DHS branch or the AAG and not getting information and access to meetings and that sort of thing for case managers, Don't let it go on too long. You know, we don't want to, I think sometimes OPDS stepping in can maybe do more harm than good because we're not there with you in the trenches. But if we can step in and try to help facilitate a resolution to those issues, you know, don't let it go on too long and feel like you're just banging your head against the wall. Reach out to us, whether, you know, it means OPDS stepping in or some other sort of, you know, trying to problem solve around this. We want to be helpful. That's what we're here for. We're here to support you and your practice and try to keep things running smoothly for your clients. So let us know what we can do to help in that regard. Thanks.
And now it looks like Paul's cat has let us know that it's time for the meeting to be over. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate the dialogue.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.